Imagine standing before the most powerful government on Earth, warning them that humanity is conducting a vast, uncontrolled experiment on the only home we've ever known. The year is 1985. Most people have never heard the term global warming. And one man, Carl Sagan, is trying to convince Congress that we're on the edge of catastrophe. They didn't listen. Now, in 2026, as we live through the exact crisis he predicted, his words echo louder than ever. What did Sagan know? How did he see it coming? And why, despite his warning being precise, detailed, and scientifically irrefutable, did we ignore him? Welcome to Echoes of Cosmos. December 10th, 1985. The Russell Senate Office Building in Washington, D.C. The Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works convenes a hearing on the greenhouse effect and global climate change. Most senators don't really understand why they're there. Climate science is obscure, technical, boring to most politicians. A few scientists will testify, some charts will be shown, and then everyone will go back to more pressing matters. But then Carl Sagan walks in. By 1985, Sagan is already famous. Cosmos aired in 1980 and became the most-watched science series in television history. He's been on Johnny Carson dozens of times. He's written best-selling books. He's the public face of science in America, and he's about to use every ounce of that credibility to issue a warning that will haunt us for generations. Sagan sits down. He has prepared testimony, pages of it, but he speaks mostly from memory, from conviction. He looks the senators in the eye and begins. We are changing the global climate. Not might be changing, not could be changing. We are changing it, right now, every day. And if we don't act soon, the consequences will be catastrophic. The room is silent. Sagan has their attention. Let me take you back further. How did Carl Sagan, an astronomer who studied Venus and Mars, become one of the first voices warning about Earth's climate crisis? It started with Venus. In the 1960s, Sagan was obsessed with Venus. Before spacecraft reached it, Venus was a mystery, similar size to Earth, similar distance from the Sun, shrouded in thick clouds. Some scientists speculated it might be a tropical paradise beneath those clouds. Sagan suspected otherwise. He studied Venus's atmosphere and realized something extraordinary. Venus was experiencing a runaway greenhouse effect. Its atmosphere, mostly carbon dioxide, trapped heat so effectively that surface temperatures reached 470 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead. Venus wasn't a tropical paradise. It was hell. And here's what kept Sagan awake at night. Venus and Earth started out similar. Both had volcanic outgassing creating atmospheres. Both had carbon dioxide, but Earth developed life. Plants absorbed CO2, produced oxygen, moderated the climate. Oceans absorbed carbon. A delicate balance emerged. Venus didn't develop life. Its CO2 accumulated. Temperatures rose. Water evaporated. More greenhouse warming, more evaporation. A feedback loop that turned the planet into an oven. Sagan asked the terrifying question, could Earth become like Venus? Not naturally. Earth is further from the Sun. We have oceans. We have life. Under normal circumstances, Earth's climate self-regulates. But what if we artificially added massive amounts of CO2 to the atmosphere? What if we disrupted that delicate balance? By the 1970s, scientists were measuring atmospheric CO2 at Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii. The data showed an unmistakable trend. CO2 levels were rising, not slowly, rapidly, from pre-industrial levels of 280 parts per million to over 340 by the mid-1980s. And the source was obvious: burning fossil fuels. Coal, oil, gas. Humanity was taking carbon that had been locked underground for millions of years and releasing it into the atmosphere at an unprecedented rate. Sagan did the math. He ran the models. He consulted with climate scientists. And the conclusion was inescapable. We were conducting a vast, uncontrolled experiment on Earth's atmosphere. An experiment that, if it went wrong, could make Earth uninhabitable. So in 1985, when Congress called for testimony on the greenhouse effect, Sagan knew this was his moment. A chance to warn the most powerful government on Earth. A chance to change course before it was too late. Let me tell you what Sagan said in that testimony, because every word, every prediction has come true. First, he explained the basic mechanism with his characteristic clarity. When you burn coal, oil, or natural gas, you release carbon dioxide. CO2 is transparent to visible light but opaque to infrared radiation heat. So sunlight passes through, warms the earth, but the heat can't escape. The atmosphere acts like a blanket, getting thicker every year we burn fossil fuels. Simple, clear, undeniable. Then he gave specific predictions. If we continue on our current trajectory, we can expect global average temperatures to rise by several degrees Celsius over the next century. This will cause sea levels to rise as polar ice melts and oceans expand from heat, weather patterns to change dramatically, with more extreme storms, droughts, and floods, agricultural zones to shift, disrupting food production, ecosystems to collapse as species can't adapt fast enough, coastal cities to face flooding, resource wars as water and arable land become scarce. He said this in 1985, 41 years ago from where we sit now in 2026. Every single prediction has come true or is coming true. Global temperatures have risen approximately 1.3 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial times. Sea levels have risen about 20 centimeters and are accelerating. We've seen unprecedented extreme weather, hurricanes, wildfires, floods, droughts. Agricultural zones are shifting. Species are going extinct at rates not seen since the dinosaurs. Coastal cities from Miami to Jakarta are spending billions on flood defenses. And yes, conflicts over water and resources are intensifying. Sagan saw it all coming, not because he was psychic, because he understood physics, planetary science, and systems dynamics. But here's what's most remarkable about his testimony. He didn't just warn about the problem. He explained the psychology of why we wouldn't act. The greenhouse effect operates on timescales that make it easy to ignore, he told the senators. The changes are gradual. Year to year, you might not notice. But decade to decade, century to century, they're catastrophic. Humans are bad at responding to slow-moving threats. We evolved to react to immediate dangers, predators, enemies, fires, but a threat that unfolds over decades. Our brains aren't wired for that. Add to that the fact that the benefits of fossil fuels are immediate and tangible: energy, transportation, economic growth, while the costs are delayed and diffuse. It's the perfect recipe for inaction. He was describing exactly what would happen over the next 4 decades. We would know about climate change, we would have the data, we would understand the threat, and we would keep burning fossil fuels anyway, because the psychology was too hard to overcome. Sagan also addressed something that would become central to the climate debate: uncertainty. Some senators asked, "But Dr. Sagan, aren't there uncertainties in the climate models? Maybe it won't be as bad as you predict." His response was masterful. Yes, there are uncertainties. Climate is a complex system. Models have limitations, but the uncertainties cut both ways. It might not be as bad as we predict, but it might also be worse. When you're dealing with the habitability of the only planet we have, uncertainty is not a reason for inaction. It's a reason for precaution. If there's a chance, even a modest chance, that we're destabilizing Earth's climate in ways that will harm billions of people and countless species, we have a moral obligation to act. This is the precautionary principle, and Sagan articulated it perfectly. But then he went further. He connected climate change to his cosmic perspective, the view that made him unique among scientists. Consider, he said, that we've explored the solar system. We've studied Venus, Mars, Titan. We understand planetary atmospheres. And what we've learned is this: stable, habitable climates are rare and precious. Venus shows us what happens when greenhouse warming runs away. Mars shows us what happens when an atmosphere is lost. Earth, our Earth, is the Goldilocks planet, not too hot, not too cold, just right for life. And we are the first species in Earth's 4-5 billion year history capable of disrupting that balance. We have become a geological force. Our actions now rival volcanic eruptions and asteroid impacts in their potential to change the planet. This is not a political issue. This is a planetary issue, and it requires us to think and act as a planetary civilization. The senators listened. Some seemed genuinely moved, some took notes, some asked thoughtful questions, and then they did nothing. Why? This is the tragedy at the heart of Sagan's climate testimony. He was right. The science was clear. The warning was urgent. The platform was powerful, testifying before the United States Senate, and still nothing changed. There were multiple reasons. First, economic interests. The fossil fuel industry recognized the existential threat that climate action posed to their business model. They began funding doubt, confusion, and delay. Not by disproving the science, they couldn't, but by manufacturing the appearance of controversy. Second, political polarization. Climate change became a partisan issue. Accepting the science became coded as liberal, while denying it became conservative. Science was dragged into culture wars where it didn't belong. Third, the problem of timescales. Just as Sagan predicted, the slow pace of climate change made it easy to postpone action. We'll deal with it next year, next decade, when it becomes urgent. Except by the time it feels urgent, you're already locked into decades of future warming. CO2 stays in the atmosphere for centuries. The climate system has inertia. By the time you see the worst effects, it's too late to prevent them. Fourth, the tragedy of the commons. Every nation wanted others to reduce emissions while they continued growing. Every generation wanted the next generation to pay the costs. Individual rationality led to collective catastrophe. Sagan understood all of this. In his testimony and in later writings, he described the forces that would prevent action. He saw the tragedy unfolding even as he tried to prevent it, but he never stopped trying. Throughout the late 1980s and into the 1990s, as his health declined, Sagan continued speaking about climate change. He testified again. He wrote articles. He appeared on television. He used every platform available to him. In 1990, he wrote an open letter to President George H.W. Bush, urging action on climate change. He helped organize the World Scientists' Warning to Humanity in 1992, signed by over 1,700 scientists, including the majority of living Nobel laureates. Climate change was a central focus. In his final book, Billions and Billions, published posthumously in 1997, he devoted an entire section to climate change. Even as cancer ravaged his body, he was writing about humanity's self-inflicted planetary crisis. One passage from that book haunts me. Our civilization runs on fossil fuels. Our agriculture, our industry, our transportation, our way of life, all dependent on coal, oil, and gas. Asking us to give that up seems impossible, like asking a heroin addict to quit cold turkey. But the alternative is planetary catastrophe. And unlike an individual addict, we're taking the whole world down with us. The question is whether we can develop the wisdom and will to change course before it's too late. I'm not optimistic, but I haven't given up hope. He died in December 1996, less than a month after writing those words. The Kyoto Protocol was signed the following year, a first attempt at international climate action. It was too little, too late, and the United States never ratified it. Sagan never saw meaningful climate action. He died warning, predicting, pleading. Now let's fast forward to 2026. Let's see how accurate Sagan's 1985 predictions were. Temperature rise. He predicted several degrees Celsius of warming. We're currently at about 13 degrees C above pre-industrial levels and rising rapidly. We're on track for 2-3 degrees C by end of century if current policies continue. Sea level rise. He predicted rising seas from melting ice and thermal expansion. Sea levels have risen about 20 centimeters since 1985 and are accelerating. Coastal flooding is now routine in many cities. Extreme weather. He predicted more intense storms, droughts, and floods. We've seen record-breaking hurricanes, devastating wildfires, catastrophic floods, and multi-year droughts. The pattern is unmistakable. Agricultural disruption. He predicted shifting growing zones and food insecurity. We're seeing exactly that. Heat waves are reducing crop yields. Traditional agricultural regions are becoming unreliable. Water scarcity threatens food production. Ecosystem collapse. He predicted species couldn't adapt fast enough. We're in the sixth mass extinction. Coral reefs are dying. Arctic sea ice is vanishing. Entire ecosystems are transforming or disappearing. Social instability. He predicted resource conflicts. We've seen climate change contribute to conflicts in Syria, Sudan, and elsewhere. Climate migration is becoming a major geopolitical issue. Every prediction, every single one, accurate or even understated. But here's what's most chilling. In 1985, preventing catastrophic climate change would have been relatively easy. We had time. We could have transitioned gradually. The costs would have been modest. Now in 2026, we're in crisis mode. We're not trying to prevent climate change, we're trying to limit how bad it gets. We're not discussing whether to act, we're discussing how to survive. The window Sagan warned about has closed, and this is crucial, Sagan would not want us to despair. Even in his darkest warnings, he always included a message of agency, of human capability, of the possibility of change. If Sagan were alive today, what would he tell us? First, it's not too late to prevent the worst outcomes. Yes, some warming is locked in. Yes, we've already caused damage. But the difference between 1.5 degrees C, 2 degrees C, and 3 degrees C of warming is enormous. Every fraction of a degree matters. Every ton of CO2 we don't emit matters. Second, the technology exists. Solar, wind, nuclear, batteries, electric vehicles. We have the tools to decarbonize. What's lacking is political will, not technical capability. Third, use your cosmic perspective. Zoom out. Earth is the only habitable world we know. There's no planet B, no backup. This is it. Protecting it isn't optional, it's existential. Fourth, think generationally. You're not just living for yourself, but for your children, grandchildren, and all future generations. Climate change is intergenerational theft. We're enjoying the benefits while passing the catastrophic costs to those who come after. Fifth, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. We won't solve climate change overnight, but every step matters. Every policy, every innovation, every individual choice. Progress, not perfection. Sixth, stay scientifically informed, but don't be paralyzed by doom. Yes, the situation is serious, but humans are capable of remarkable things when we choose to act. We've solved big problems before. And finally, remember that this is a test of our species' maturity. Can we think long-term? Can we cooperate globally? Can we prioritize survival over short-term profit? The answer to those questions will determine not just our future, but our worthiness to call ourselves intelligent. There's a bitter irony in Sagan's climate legacy. He spent his life searching for intelligent life in the universe. He believed it was probably common. He thought countless civilizations were out there, scattered among the stars. But he also suspected most of them don't survive. He called it the Great Filter, the idea that there's a stage in technological development where most civilizations fail, where they develop powerful technologies but lack the wisdom to use them responsibly. Nuclear weapons are one filter, artificial intelligence might be another, but climate change might be the most common filter of all. Think about it, any civilization that industrializes will face this challenge. They'll discover fossil fuels, dense, accessible energy sources. They'll use them to build their civilization, and by the time they understand the consequences, they'll be addicted. Their entire economy, their way of life, built on a foundation that's destroying their planet. The question is whether they develop the wisdom and will to change course before it's too late. That's the filter. That's the test. And we're taking it right now. Sagan understood this. It's why he was so urgent about climate action. He saw it not just as an environmental issue, but as an existential test, a measure of whether humanity had achieved what he called planetary maturity. So far, we're failing, but the test isn't over. We're still taking it, and unlike a school exam, there's no time limit except the one imposed by physics. Every year we delay makes it harder, but it's not impossible, not yet. Let me end with one final story about Sagan's climate testimony. After his 1985 Senate testimony, a young congressional staffer approached him. This staffer had been inspired by Cosmos. He asked Sagan, "Do you really think we'll act in time?" Sagan paused. The staffer expected the optimistic answer Sagan usually gave publicly. Instead, Sagan said something that stuck with this staffer for decades. "Honestly, no, I don't think we'll act in time to prevent serious damage. Humans are too short-sighted, too divided, too driven by immediate self-interest." But Sagan continued, "I have to act as if we will. Because the alternative, accepting defeat, guarantees failure. If I can change even one mind, influence even one policy, shift the odds even slightly in favor of action, then speaking up is worth it." Hope is a choice, and choosing hope is the only rational response to a problem this important. That staffer went on to work on climate policy for 3 decades. He told this story at a climate conference in 2025. He said Sagan's words, that choice to hope, to act despite doubt, had sustained him through decades of frustration and setbacks. And he said this: Sagan was right to be pessimistic about humanity's response, but he was also right to keep trying, because some of us listened, some of us acted. And while we didn't prevent the crisis, we're preventing the worst-case scenario. Sagan's 1985 testimony didn't save the world, but it saved some of it. And for the people who won't die from climate disaster because we acted, because we reduced emissions, because we adapted, Sagan's voice mattered. In 2026, we live in the world Sagan warned about. Temperatures rising, seas encroaching, weather extremes, ecosystems collapsing, everything he predicted. But we also live in a world trying, finally, desperately, perhaps too late, but still trying to change course. Renewable energy is exploding. Electric vehicles are mainstream. Nations are committing to net zero. Technology is advancing. Public awareness is high. Youth movements are demanding action. None of this would have happened without people like Sagan, voices who warned when warning was unpopular, who explained when the science was complex, who connected climate to our cosmic context. Sagan's 1985 testimony didn't change the world, but it planted seeds in scientists, policymakers, activists, ordinary citizens who heard his message and carried it forward. And maybe, just maybe, those seeds will grow into the planetary forest of wisdom we need to survive our own success. Carl Sagan died in 1996 warning us about climate change. 30 years later, his warning echoes louder than ever. The question is, are we finally ready to listen? Thank you for joining us on this journey through Carl Sagan's most urgent warning and our ongoing failure and potential redemption in responding to it. This has been Echoes of Cosmos. Remember, we are made of star stuff. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself. And what we do with that knowledge, in the face of the greatest challenge our species has ever faced, will determine whether we're worthy of the cosmos that created us. See you in the stars, if there are any left to see.